What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down my thoughts on GBPUSD and Euro Pound going into this week, as those are two of the best setups that I'm currently seeing on the pairs that I trade. So if we get straight into the analysis, and I will take you through those pairs. Alright guys, so starting with Euro Pound, and we will start on the daily time frame. So currently we have been in this sort of consolidation phase for a little bit, but how I'm seeing this is price has swept this high. It then came into a 4-hour level of supply in this region here. This was also the daily supply, slightly refined to that 4-hour level. We had a daily break of structure to the downside, and the reason I'm counting this, even though it is a wick break, is on the lower time frames it was a clear break, and this candle was caused by news as well. And overall, if we look at the overall general direction of price, you can see that we are currently in this bearish trend. And we left liquidity at this low, so we are expecting price to come back towards that low to take out those buyers. Yeah, basically price looks bearish, is in a clear bearish trend, and we are looking to take this liquidity down here. So last week price actually pulled back into a premium of the current daily leg, the leg being between this low and this high. That is our current trading range where we are looking for the sells, as obviously if price were to go above this range, then the sells would then be invalid and we'd be looking for buys. And if price were to go below this range, then we would adapt to that new breaker structure. So last week we actually came up, and if we see that this wick on the daily time frame, this one just here, price swept that, which was an area of daily liquidity. And it was also sort of like the last main liquidity pool within the current range which we hadn't taken out. So now that price has taken out this area of daily liquidity, we can look at this internal trend just here, and we can see that once that happened, once we swept liquidity to the left, price basically just rolled over to the downside, going from printing higher lows and higher highs here over to lower lows and lower highs. And all of the demand areas are failing, supply is in control, therefore we are looking for sells. So what I'm interested in going into this week is for price to pull back into one of these areas of supply. So we have this first one here, and we also have this one as well. And these two areas are in a premium of the current leg. If we draw a fib from the low to the high, you can see that they are above the 50% level. So what I'd be looking for going into this week would be a retracement into one of these two levels to then sell back down all the way to this low. Or if you wanted to have a more conservative take profit, you could also target this whole sort of demand area. But as I mentioned previously, this was created by news, and a lot of the times with the news, with areas of supply and demand created by news, you see them not get respected. So in my opinion, I see this low going, and that's where I will be personally targeting. But yeah, that's the setup I'm seeing on Euro Pound. So to summarize, sweep of daily liquidity, break of the overall higher time frame 4-hour trend, the internal trend I mean, which was this sort of trend where we were printing these higher lows and higher highs. Price took out this structure, that would be our change of character. Demand also failed immediately below, so now we are waiting to see how these supply areas react, as once demand fails, we know that there is a high likelihood that supply takes control. Also, one other thing I wanted to mention was that we had this sort of level where we've had these two equal highs, and we also have this wick here, which I'm seeing as inducement, since it induced this area of supply above, and by induced I mean it stopped just below it without actually coming into it. So that would be my setup for Euro Pound for this week. If we go over to GU now, and we will start on the weekly. So on GU, on the weekly time frame, we are still bearish. You can see that we've come into this area of supply. We then created a weekly break of structure. And between September of last year and where we are currently in September of this year, price has been pulling back on the weekly time frame, and crucially now it has reached this weekly level of supply where we've had a very nice reaction, like we can see just here. And on the daily time frame, we can also see that price has broken out of this uptrend structure. We had this higher high, higher low, higher high. Price then took out that structure just here, failing to hold demand. So that would be our change of character on the daily time frame. So as for overall higher time frame bias, we are looking for sells currently, since we have had a reaction from that weekly area followed by a break of structure on the daily time frame. So if we go over to the 4 hour, and what I always like to do when I do these types of analysis is mark out the previously mitigated areas of supply and demand, just so that we can see where the sort of supply chain is happening and map out the current structure so that we are trading with the overall trend. So if we just mark those on, we've had a mitigation of this area after price swept this sort of area of liquidity below it. We've then had a 4 hour break of structure when we broke this low, since we had a move down, a pull back, and then a move down, and this structure was closed below with this candle. Therefore the break of structure was this sort of level. And then last week on Friday during NFP, price tapped into this area of 4 hour supply, and then internally, if we have a look, we have sort of shifted back bearish, failing to hold demand just in this area here. So if we mark that on, demand failed after our reaction from this key level. So what we can look to do now is follow this current trend where we've had lower low, lower high, lower low, and so we can anticipate now that what comes next is another lower high followed by a lower low. So as for areas where we can actually look to get in, what I like to do is look at any candles that sweep liquidity. So we've had these early sellers were swept, and the way you can see they're early sellers is basically because, you know, we've got this sort of trend line liquidity building up below this area of supply. When NFP came out, we had this candle which took all of the stop losses of the people that were selling below that level, and we also broke this structure as well. So going over to the 5 minute, what I noticed was that we left this clean looking area of supply which swept liquidity to the left and left imbalance. We also broke structure from that level. So are we waiting for a retracement into this sort of area, and then we can look for our entry model within this zone to look if we can get some sales back down to the previous low. As you can see though, GU is very bearish at the moment. We are showing clear bearish price action after a reaction from this area of supply where we've had this very impulsive sell move, and like always with these very impulsive moves, you normally get a fill or a partial fill of these areas. That's just what price does. It retraces to fill in these big imbalanced areas. So as for targets, we can look to target this previous daily low. As that's the next logical place to target, since on the 4 hour, like I mentioned, we are in a clear bearish trend where we've had a break of structure, mitigation of this area, and then what we can anticipate comes next is obviously a further break of structure, which would coincide with the break of this current low. So as for if this level is to fail and price continues higher, we could also see price come into this 4-hour extreme. If we are to see this as sort of like an inducement below the area, so that is another thing we could see. But overall, like I mentioned, I'm not seeing price reversing just yet. I am seeing further sells, particularly because we reacted from that weekly area. We should see some longer term sells, which was confirmed by this daily break of structure as well. So if we just mark these two trades on, we could see this, or as a backup, we could also see price come into this level and then sell as well. And like usual, both of these trades will be confirmation based. I'm not just setting a limit at these areas. I will wait and see how price reacts. And then what I particularly want to see is when price comes into one of these two levels, let's use this as an example. I want to see it initially push away, sweep the early sellers, break structure, and then retrace into some sort of area of supply, and then we can look to ride that back down to the previous low. So yeah, that is what I'm seeing on GU and Euro Pound this week. I hope you guys have an amazing week, and hopefully we can catch one of these clean looking setups. So thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.